Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Are you watching the 2020 Olympics, the Summer Olympics in Tokyo, even though it's 2021? I don't know what you guys were doing in 2020. Well, we all know what we were doing in 2020. But what were you doing in 2019? That's what I want to ask, because this story that we're going to be talking today about kind of flew under the radar. It exploded in January 2019. And I don't know about you, but January 2019, now that I'm thinking about it again, it was a period where I received some shocking news about my whole thing, my whole big drama with the whole lawsuit thing, and I was trying to reset my life. And I think a lot of people during that time were trying to reset their lives, because remember at the beginning of 2020 or at the end of 2019, a lot of people, the theme seemed to be like, yeah, 2020 is going to be great because 2019 was really tough and we're going to look at 2020. 2020 has been going to be great. And then boom, you know what happened with 2020. So I think a lot of people were distracted perhaps in 2019, even though I think on the whole I had a good time in 2019. It ended up being a good year, but we had a shocking incident in 2019 that relates to this whole Olympic theme, and it relates to the whole room salon thing, and it relates to the whole shocking corruption thing, and it relates to so much. And it's so much drama. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So yes, the Olympics are in Tokyo, but let's roll back the clock to 1998 to the Winter Olympics in Nagano, Japan. And a short track speed skater, very attractive, Kim Yong Ho from South Korea, wins gold medal in 1,000 meter race and silver medal in 5,000 meter relay. He is the hero. So totally awesome, talented, amazing athlete. Then 4 years later, in 2002 at the Salt Lake City Winter Olympics in the United States, he almost won another gold medal for the 1,500 meter. And remember this big drama? Yeah, this was the guy. And if you're remembering which drama, it was Apolo Ohno. I mean, couldn't have gone any more poetic. Apolo Ohno. And he even had Japanese heritage. Oh no. And so when it looked like he had won, Kim Yong Ho had won again, he took the Korean flag and he was like doing a victory lap. But then the judges said, no, I think you did some illegal maneuver around the track and you actually cheated. So they disqualified him and said, nope, you're not going to get the gold medal, and it's going to be Apolo Ohno. He is going to get the gold medal. And people were so mad, and they were sending death threats to Apolo Ohno, and Korea was like threatening to boycott the closing or whatever, but everything worked out. But I think Apollo had some, had to decompress a lot after that. And then also, Kim Yong Ho had a bit of a hard time after that as well. So this is where it seems as if a lot of the drama begins in Kim Yong Ho's life. So this is 2002. And of course, we're getting this information from none other than our famous and infamous Kim Yong Ho, that entertainment rage guy. I'm going to call him rage guy because he even uses that word in Korean, that he is in such rage about this case. And essentially with him, he is saying that this Olympian is trying to manipulate us through the media again and again and again by trying to put a false image of innocence when essentially he is out there like milking and ripping and scamming off of women. We'll get into that later. His evidence, his allegations. So why is our entertainment reporter so mad? At the beginning of this year, Kim Dong-sung, in an effort to revitalize his image after a messy divorce, after all of these allegations that we'll get to, he went on this reality show for divorcees. And it was on TV Joseon, which is one of these newer channels that's on the conservative side. And he was trying to resurrect his image, and Mr. Kim was not having it. He was just like, look, this guy is out there and he has this girlfriend on the show. And to the reporter, this girlfriend looked like a prop. This girlfriend, he said, like, was just saying that, oh, he was just pretending that, like, she's saying, like, oh, he's so great and you're being maligned and, like, this is not fair. You're being treated so horribly by the media. That's what made him go into this story. And we're going to go into it. So now let's go back to 2002 and like where did everything kind of start to unravel? Well, he got married in 2004, but apparently he was kind of like this ladies' man, and there was allegations that even right before his marriage, like the day before, he was out on a date, and so he was a ladies' man. Just put it that way. Then he was kind of going back and forth between Korea and the United States, being like a coach. But there was a lot of allegations of him being abusive towards his students. And so there was instances where his license or coaching status was being revoked, or his membership in the coaching association was banned for life, or then it was lifted. So there was just like a lot of drama there. There was like not enough evidence to, really go after him. But then the association thought there was enough fire and smoke to restrict him. So he ended up coming back to Korea. And then he became a TV commentator for skating, for different networks. And so he was doing things here and there. But then he also got wrapped up in like the Winter Olympics. And with the Winter Olympics, when you get wrapped up in that whole debacle, you get wrapped up in President Park and her confidant Choi Soon-sil, who was doing all this kind of strange embezzling stuff with sports foundations, and he was involved with that, and even involved with, remember the niece that started ratting out, just getting mad at her auntie? See, again, nieces and aunties that don't get along with each other then start to turn on each other and start ratting each other out. Well, that niece apparently had an affair also with this sports star, but that's not even the main conflict here. That's not even the main story. That's just kind of a side story. That only involved $50,000, and that's probably all we're just going to talk about there, because that is peanuts compared to the main story. Okay, so let's just say from 2004 to 2018. 2018, that was the marriage period. Rocky, ups and down. There was 2 kids. We don't really have to get into all of the details, but let's just say that during this time, there was one pivotal affair that we are going to talk about that Mr. Kim brings up in a lot of detail, because this is the affair that the news covered, because it made it into the courts because it involved attempted murder. An attempted murder over email. How, are you wondering? Okay, let me give you the executive summary first, and then we'll go into the juicy text messages. So by this point, Mr. Kim is saying that Kim Dong-sung, our esteemed Olympian, has been exhibiting a pattern of dating rich women and expecting gifts out of them, and has found another woman who has money from her family, but she herself doesn't make much money. She's a school teacher, and she has just kind of fallen in love with our Olympian. Mind you, the Olympian is married with kids. This school teacher is also married to a husband, but I don't think she has kids, because we'll also see from the text message. So all throughout this affair, she's been spending a lot of money on our Olympian, and the mother has been kind of giving her the money to do this, but there comes a point where she needs about like $1.4 million to try to get an apartment for the both of them, like a separate apartment that's like their love nest. And the mom was just like, sweetie, no, you already got him a car, you got him watches, like 4 different Rolex watches. No. And so the girl is mad. She wants her love nest, and the love nest comes with like a ticking time, like, contract on it. So what's the logical thing for this girl to do? She finds a hitman that you can order on email, apparently. She emails a hitman and says that I'll give you double the deposit if you can hurry this along, because I got an apartment contract to fulfill in 2 weeks. Can you do it quick? So how did we find this out? Well, her husband was suspicious that she might be having an affair. So he starts to go through her technology, like the computer or her phone. And he's going through the emails, and then he's like, whoa, this is not what I expected. I think he was expecting like, kind of lovey-dovey kind of like messages with her and another man, and he was not expecting like to find like an order of a hit with his mother-in-law as the victim. So he reports this, and then that's how we got to the point where she got 2 years in jail. Now the Olympian says that, I had no idea that she really felt this way, and I'm shocked that she would go to this extent. This is crazy. And even before all of the details came out, he was saying like, she's just a fan, because as people were kind of digging through some of the layers before everything became public, he was just saying like, the watches, they were just gifts from a fan, and yeah, maybe I was a little bit stupid for accepting such an expensive gift, but I mean, like, who wouldn't accept an expensive gift like that? So this is why our entertainment reporter dug real deep and was just like, give me all the messages, give me all the messages. And so he got like real specific, dirty messages, and he was basically saying like, no, dude, this was not an ordinary fan kind of gift. These were actual gifts that you were requesting. And so he was having to admit more and more and more and more. And so the sad part of it was that during the trial, because the mom, after she found out that her own daughter emailed a hitman to kill her, wanted to keep her own daughter out of jail. And she said that, court and police or prosecutors, I don't know, like who is at that point, who is the case against? Like ordinary, you'd be like, you try to kill me over email, I'm suing you. And then it's like the battle like this, but then she's just like, oh no, my baby tried to kill me, I need to protect her. Okay, so then she tries to protect her, saying like, she was just so stressed out because it's my fault. I was stressing her out. So she was trying to protect her own daughter from going to jail by saying like she stressed out her own daughter. How weird is that? All over $6 million. $6 million inheritance. And actually she messed up that inheritance, because there is a law in Korea that if you try to kill your parents, then any inheritance is null and void. There's actually a law which should concern you because if there's a law, that means it happened enough times where they actually had to make a law. Because when I was going through the lawsuit, there were so many instances where things just didn't actually have an applicable law. Like reality just didn't fit what was like in the law books because nobody had gone to extreme lengths enough to care enough to create a law to make it match what was happening in real life. So you really have to care enough, or it has to have happened enough times for it to make it into the law books. So if there is a law where you don't get your inheritance if you try to kill your own parents, that means that that's actually happened way too many times, that they actually have to make a law to protect themselves against it. Okay, so do you want to look at some of these text messages and see how this romance went from kind of like a one-night stand to emailing a hitman? Oy, oy, oy. Okay, so just as a disclaimer, the Entertainment Reporter says that these messages are totally legit, that he has the originals, and that he actually has toned them down, that they were more graphically explicit, like they had a lot more adult content in them, and that he was sparing our precious ears and eyes, and still it's pretty graphic. So he says that, you know, if they want to come for him, they can go for him, but he has the real receipts. So in the first Kakao Talk message, she says she's going to the hospital without her husband's knowledge because she doesn't want a baby. So it looks like she's going to get her tubes tied or something. And she says like, oh, it seems like I'm a bad girl, huh? And he's like, And then she's like, yeah, the other night, like, did we or did we not hook up? And if we did you finish inside me? Number 2, it's like, buy me the watch or I'll leave. So he says, I want to buy this watch, and he shows this picture of a Rolex, real tacky Rolex, real old style Rolex if you ask me. He says, borrow the money and get it for me, ha ha ha. Or just, you know, kind of get it in remembrance of our meeting each other. And she's like, oh, your wife won't get it for you. You must really want it. I'm with my husband right now. And he's like, no, she won't buy it for me. Okay, bye. I'm going to go home now. And she's like, oh, no, fine. I'll buy it for you. Do you want anything else? You know what? You should never say you'll never see me again because I think it's going to make me want to die. She basically might as well have said like, okay, I've fallen into a trap and I can't get out. And then he says, I want the watch, then I want you, and then I want the watch. So, I mean, like he's basically saying that he is kind of like, he's just shallow. And then she's like, oh, you really like watches? And he's like, watches and cars. And then she's like, well, how do you need any like kind of like padded coats? You know, like down jackets and stuff. And then immediately he puts out the most expensive brand, Moncler, and he's like, oh, jackets and the vest. And he's like, well, for us, you know, like speed skating coaches and stuff, he's like, for us, they're like suits, you know, for other people who have to like go to work in suits. The third message, he's like, oh, I want to wear my Rolex and go on holiday. So I guess he got his Rolex. And he's like, since you got me a Rolex, it looks like I can never let you go. He says, I'll wear nothing but the Rolex and the Moncler vest. Oh my God. Okay. I can't even say this. He says, I'll wear nothing but the Rolex and the Moncler vest and go right through you. And apparently these were even edited and reduced in, you know, graphic content. So I guess he got the vest as well. Now he's negotiating for another watch. He says, oh, I guess he sent some pictures. He's like, the top one is about 10K. The bottom one's a little bit more expensive. I don't know. I like it more, but it's more expensive. And then she's like, oh, well, the bottom one's only $2,500 more. And the salesman says, like, a man's watch is his pride. So, yeah, you know, why not? And he's like, wow, I better not get rid of you. I definitely need to keep you. And then she's like, oh, the watch is pretty. And he's like, well, I picked a pretty one. And she's like, well, if you toss me aside, you'll really regret it. And he's like, well, you prop up my pride. And then she's like, something like about like, oh, you know, tend well to the flowers. And he's like, well, and you also prop up my stick. And then he's like, oh, are you gonna buy me something again tomorrow? And she's like, yes, I like you too. And then she's like, the vintage watch. She is so being played. It's not even, it's sad. Now, again, about the watches. It's like, how much can he spend this time? How much can I spend this time on a watch? And she's like, oh, about $20,000. And that's basically the message. We find out that her inheritance is about $6 million. And so they're talking about, oh, kissing you was nice. And then he's like, oh, I'll make the loving even better and enough so you won't regret the gift, but our relationship has to be super, super secret. And she says, of course it is. My mom says if I want to inherit all the $6 million, I have to live a straight and proper life. All right, so then the next message is about getting a place together. So our Olympian says, you're going to keep meeting up with me, right? And then she's like, of course, because in my future, there's you. And then he's like, oh, well, then should we get a place together? So then apparently what happened? She got him a studio apartment, paid the deposit, paid the rent and the furniture, just like how the girls in the room salon work it out in the room salon video. So if you haven't checked that out, see how Kiki does it. I think he did the Kiki plan to get an apartment. Eighth message shows that just like Kiki, after he got the apartment, he's charging stuff on her card and he's just letting her know like, okay, those charges were me. I'm gonna, you know, buy this and buy that. There you go. They have their own rendezvous spot and he's like, oh, this is so great. We have our own rendezvous spot. All right, so now we're getting to the main job. That's how Mr. Kim, our reporter, is describing it. He's saying, okay, so this is November 2018, and this is when our Olympian really does file for divorce from his wife. And he's saying like, oh, I'm about to divorce my wife. And then apparently he complains a lot about his wife, and that's edited out. And then she says, oh, I'll take care of you. And he's like, oh, I'm about to go crazy. And she says, oh, just stay at the, you know, at the love nest for now. Then the next message is like the cheer up present. She's like, and I'll buy you an Aston Martin to cheer you up. And then he just basically says like, oh, okay, well, I'll use your card. Like, what? And then she's like, oh, you know, I'm going to decide to just take care of everything for you. And he's like, well, then I guess all I have to do is just decide on stuff then, huh? And she's like, let's just live happily together. All right, so the next message is, connect me to a lawyer. Can you refer me to a divorce lawyer? She's like, yes, I love you. Me too. She gets them a lawyer just like a little servant does and got him a lawyer. And then apparently, I guess she gave him like $20,000 to do like foreign currency exchange. And then she's like, okay, well, when you go meet the lawyer, it's going to cost like $11,000 out of that cash I just gave you for the currency exchange. Give him $11,000. So it sounds like she's always just like pumping cash to him, just like that man was pumping cash to Kiki. All right, the next one is the apartment contract. Now, this is the thing that really gets this girl into trouble. All right, so this is November 27th, 2018. And so he's like, oh, excited. He's like, yeah, this is going to be our new fabulous, fabulous apartment. And you remember how this is very similar to the allegations made against our Yoon Suk-yeol, who's also running for president, and his wife and all of the allegations there about their whole apartment thing. So this is why I bring it up, because this kind of theme is just popping up everywhere, it seems, in Korea. Okay, so he's like, okay, so this is from the realtor. This is the money that we have to get ready. And these are big amounts. So they have to get a check for $792,000, another check for $548,000, and then another check for $100,000. So these are basically like, I guess, deposits for like different points along the way. And it's a total of $1.44 million. They have to get this by December 14th. It's November 27th. So that's like a little over 2 weeks. They have to get about $1.44 million. So she's probably has to go to her mom and say like, Mommy, I need $1.44 million so I can move into my new apartment with this guy who's not my husband. Right? And so what is the mom going to be doing? She's mom is probably just like, no. And so the mom says no. She puts her foot down and she's like, no. You paid $250,000 for this Aston Martin for this guy, and all these like tens of thousands of dollars for these like Rolex watches and however much money in cash that you're just blowing on this guy. Like, no. And what's the logical thing that she did? She had to get rid of her mother. This girl, I don't know. And she's a teacher. Can you imagine? She is a teacher. So again, you know, like going back to our bullying case, and you're wondering like what kind of teacher would side with a bully? What kind of teacher would allow somebody to just go off and kill themselves or not care about students' mental health? Probably teachers who are not well themselves. She emails this killer, and I think even this killer is probably like, this is a little weird. Like, I don't know, like, how, you know, the other side of this operation thinks and operates, but I would probably think that they, even though they're in that business, are probably also very like careful. This is the email. Like I'm putting up the email that our entertainment reporter got, and it says like, oh, please hurry. I sent an extra $30,000 to your account. So the price is $100,000 if you're wondering. And the deposit, I guess, was a third, but she's just like, I'll give you 2/3 if you can hurry. So she asked this dude to hurry, but I think the guy who's getting the email is kind of, you know, not hurrying, because he's probably thinking like, this is a little crazy, especially when she's saying like, I got to get this apartment contract done. Okay, so luckily, thank goodness, the husband found the email. The husband found the email, reported it, and was able to prevent a tragedy from happening. But again, she only got 2 years in jail. And, you know, our Olympian was just like, oh no, this sounds crazy. I had no idea. No idea. She was just a fan. And then he had to kind of admit, oh yeah, well, okay, well, there was this and this and that. And then even with the whole niece of Chae-sun-sil, he was just like, oh, I barely knew her. Like, you know, she was just approaching me because she was doing this whole sports thing for the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, and she wanted to kind of use my name and, you know, kind of my celebrity status to help some sort of like project go along. But then apparently, nope. They lived together even, like in Chae-sun-sil's house or something, and she even gave him like $50,000 for something, and so he had to admit that. So then this is like all the stuff that this entertainment reporter has said. And he was just saying like, you know, this guy is just kind of pumping all of these stories, and it's just not cool. And he's not cool with that. And then he wasn't cool with the way that he was presenting himself to try to like resurrect his image based on what he says are falsehoods when he was on that reality show at the beginning of the year. Now, with this entertainment reporter, it seems as if like if you really repent, if you repent honestly, like he's willing to kind of really forgive you. So I think if this guy is really willing to say he is extremely sorry and be very self-reflective, he will, at least in the eyes of our entertainment reporter, be forgiven and can have a second chance. And I know like it's not necessarily like, why should he be the standard or like why should he please the entertainment reporter? But in a way, I do see like how the entertainment reporter, even though he's infamous, even though he has his own controversy and even though he has his own problems too, but in a way, like I do see how he does represent, a certain segment of the population and a certain style of how you do go about approaching your comeback. You want to have a humble, repentant comeback, not a comeback that's based on kind of like half-truths, because our entertainment reporter brought this up and even I was just like, oh, okay. I agree with you, because he brought up this article saying that our Olympian, when they asked him like, why are you getting a divorce? And the Olympian said, well, my wife misrepresented her academic credentials, so that's why I'm getting a divorce from her. So our entertainment reporter is just saying like, man, he is not even saying like all of the stuff, the shady stuff, the affairs and all the stuff that he's been up to that probably led to the divorce and the strain in the marriage. And he's going to blame her academic credentials. Like maybe she didn't finish her degree, something. I don't know. Like, I don't know what it was. He's just going to blame it on that. So I see where he's coming from. Anyhow, so that is the story of our Olympian that I alluded to way back when I said that maybe we should talk about this in a previous episode. So I wanted to follow up on that because, now that we're in the Olympics and we're talking about Japan, I thought that it just made sense. All right, guys. Well, hope you enjoyed that. We'll talk to you later. See you again. Bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.